kind of scary running around the homes, just banging on people's doors in the middle of the night, just saying, hey, leave the homes.
They were packing up, just putting all their valuables in it and taking off.
Last night I was up till about 3. It's absolutely scary.
Steve's pet store, it's gone. Foxes, gone.
We've seen a lot of businesses on fire. I've lived in LA since 2010. I've never seen a fire like this before.
This area is a total loss. There's no water north of Woodbury.
The fire has grown.
Be prepared, have your go bag, and immediately evacuate.
Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock tonight. I'm Alex Michelson.
Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Marla Tejas here for Christine Devine. Of course, we're covering several massive fires burning in the LA area right now. The Palisades Fire in the Pacific Palisades, the Eaton Fire, as mentioned, right above Altadena, the Hurst Fire in the Sylmar area. We also have the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills, and then now, of course, the Studio City house fires that we've been watching. 3 smaller fires also burning. That's the Lidia Fire. That one scorched about 100 acres along Soledad Canyon Road near Acton. The Woodley Fire in the Sepulveda Basin wildlife area, and the Olivas Fire in south of Ventura near the Olivas Links golf course. Fire crews are working to contain these smaller blazes as conditions there remain dry.
The biggest fire at all, though, is the Palisades Fire, which has burned more than 15,000 acres. More than 1,000 structures have been destroyed, and that number could go up. It is still at 0% containment. We have seen more structures burning as we speak. Tens of thousands of people remain under mandatory evacuation orders. More than 13,000 structures are still threatened.
Now let's turn our attention to the Eaton Fire. That one turned deadly. 5 people have died. The circumstances around their deaths are not yet known. Roughly 100 structures have been destroyed, though that number is likely much higher on this Wednesday night. And it has exploded in size. It tops almost 11,000 acres with 0% containment. An estimated 100,000 people are under mandatory evacuation orders.
There's the Hurst Fire, which is burning in Sylmar. It has scorched more than 800 acres, forced evacuations, and I think we do have some new numbers here. As Marla just mentioned, it is now at 13% containment, so some progress there on the Hurst Fire. We are looking right now at this house fire, though, in Studio City, and we all watched this live together in the last hour. Look at that home collapsing in front of our eyes, a 4-story home burning. Not clear the cause of what started that. It looked like some nearby buildings also burning tonight. The work is on to try to contain this to just these few properties there, and we want to take you live right now from Studio City, and let's listen. This is a resident who lost their home. This is the first time we've heard this new sound at 10.
Well, we were sitting in our house watching television and
heard what seemed to be gunshots. Of course, we were watching the news and all the fires. Again, heard what seemed to be gunshots and looked outside. Saw our next door neighbor's fire coming out of their home. Took a second and went back out again. He went to grab some things, and I said, our house is on fire. And
so you came in and said, the house is on fire, the house is on fire.
And which house is yours?
My house is the second house. The first house is the one right there, and the second house is the one that is burning right next to that one.
Literally grabbed our phones, the computer, and our dogs, and ran out.
Oh my goodness, I can just feel her heartache there. I'm so sorry. So yes, their home, it looks like it was that one that we were just showing. The other one that we saw collapse live on our air was that 4-story home. This is obviously new video that we got into our newsroom of the crews on the scene responding to these house fires in Studio City, we last look, the flames were nearly out, and LAFD has declared it a knockdown. This is live from Skyfox, just panning over, and you could see it was a black zone there, meaning you didn't see any of the flames as it relates to those structure fires. But then you see all these blackouts here. These are power outages, and I know we've heard from so many of you saying, I don't have power, whether you are in the valley, whether you are in the Hollywood Hills. So widespread outages tonight across the Southland.
And as we were watching that Studio City firefight within the last hour, we saw power poles sparking, which I suggested at the time meant that we would see blackouts in the area. So because I got to assume, because of this firefight, we see some of these power outages. So although they're able to knock this fire down, although they were able to contain the damage to that street, the after effect of it also is some of these power outages in the area. And you look at this area, Marla, and we know how heavily congested the Studio City area is, and that's a whole lot of people that are without power tonight. And this is another. We were just looking, that was towards the 170 that we were looking at as well, where some of those power outages were happening. So a lot happening in the San Fernando Valley right now that's all breaking tonight, and a lot of people who are in the dark as we speak.
Yeah, it's good to see the dark here, though, without the flames.
Yep.
That's what I mean by that here on the Studio City house fires. Again, those homes appear to be total losses. That for sure the 4-story home that collapsed on our air is, and then the couple just narrating for us as they watched their home go up in flames. Again, we're so sorry for all of those impacted, no matter what fire you're in. It's just absolutely devastating. One of the fires that we're watching, of course, the Eaton Fire in Altadena. That one broke out just over 24 hours ago. Laura Diaz, she is live there, and this is about 10,600 plus acres. And Laura, obviously active flames right behind you.
Yes, what you're looking at is really these gas fires that we see all around the area. We are on Home Park Avenue, and if you can just kind of walk with me, you can see the devastation. Off to the right looks to be a small station wagon. I can't even tell you what the make of the car is exactly. That's how destroyed it is. And then you can look off and see the structure of what used to be somebody's home, the chimney still standing, and then the spot fire off to the right. And then also we can see that the brick fence is still intact, but it is so random what's occurred here that you'll have one house utterly destroyed and then right next to it one that is still standing. And that's, you know, the randomness, the capriciousness of these flames that are just so hard to determine. We've been watching as the engines have been coming up and down the streets. They've had to decide which houses they could take a hold of and try to save, and those which, quite frankly, it was too late. So as we look around, it looks like a battleground here. You see an engine going by right there on one of the main streets. That's Altadena Drive. But I really find it difficult to put into words just how barren it is here and how lacking in hope it is to see scorched earth, scorched trees, something that used to be somebody's beautiful home containing all of their memories just destroyed right down to the dirt, down to the dust. And it really does hit you right in the heart to think about what this will mean to some family who will try to put their life back together once they're allowed back in to try to assess what the next steps are. Now, earlier this afternoon, I spoke to a woman. She had evacuated overnight. She was happy to come home and still find her home standing today, but she expressed a great deal of empathy for her neighbors who were not so fortunate. Let's listen.
One of my friends, it's a couple with 2 young daughters, and their house was one of the first ones to go over on the corner of Altadena in New York, and just, you know, they're camping out at a Hilton. They've lost everything, and it's just so traumatic for, especially for young people, to go through something like that. The loss and the grieving, I feel it.
You know, oftentimes people talk about Southern California. It's a huge area. People don't know their neighbors. As somebody who grew up here, I can tell you it's not true, that I think people really have a sense of community and trying to help those around them. And we've certainly sensed that here. When we were speaking to that woman just a little while ago, several hours ago, she talked about the fact that all of the people who live in the area have been in communication. They've been trying to help each other, offer someone a place to stay if they still have a home intact, and really just a sense of community and wanting to be a good neighbor. And I know that we're here still in Altadena, but I must tell you, Alex and Marla, that I know that area of Studio City very well. In fact, I put a bid in on a house there on Sunswept, so I know that street. They have lovely views that look out. They're a little bit remote, and the streets are so narrow that sometimes you have to pull over so that the car can go around you to go the opposite direction. So for the fire department that would have been up in those hills trying to put out that fire, they would have had a very difficult job. And also the steep slope that sends right up the hillside that would have sent that fire burning at a rapid rate, again, would have been quite difficult. And then the area that they're talking about there over off of Coldwater Canyon is eventually where I did live for some 15 years. Same thing. A lot of people in the industry live up in those hills, and they move there for the view. But when you have a fire that's moving at that rapid rate, fueled by these Santa Ana winds, it is a recipe for disaster. But coming back here live to Altadena, again, you can see what people are having to contend with. And I'm sure a lot of people are asking themselves tonight, why wasn't my house saved? When you see one structure completely intact and then another one like this, that literally could be a movie set, just total and utter destruction. Laura Diaz sending it back live to the studio. Alex and Marla.
Yeah, it looks like Universal Studios or something. Laura, thank you for all that perspective. Really interesting context there. We appreciate it.
All right, moving on to the schools. Los Angeles Unified School District, as you know, is the largest in the state. The superintendent, there he is, Alberto Carvalho, earlier with officials. He announced that the district, all schools will be closed tomorrow, obviously because of the widespread fires, wind, and smoke. Students will continue to have access to academic resources online and will be able to get meal services at 8 sites between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Remote learning may continue on Friday. Officials say they will make that call tomorrow afternoon. It's also important to note, we also heard from Beverly Hills Unified. They are not in the evacuation zone, but nonetheless, they are closing their district schools tomorrow because a lot of their staff are in the impacted areas. Yeah, maybe if we want to show that video we were just showing of President Biden is in town today with Kristen Crowley. Another note when it comes to schools, UCLA is going to be basically canceling all undergraduate classes for the next 2 days. Their graduate classes are going to go to remote learning, so they're basically trying to keep people off the campus of the University of California, Los Angeles. Chelsea Edwards is live for us tonight. She continues our coverage of the Palisades Fire when we see a church that is not doing well. And we were just talking about LAUSD, and you have board member Nick Malvoin with you.
That's correct. He just walked up here. So the church that we've been looking at all night is right across the street from an LAUSD elementary school. And I want to bring Nick in. Nick just happened to be walking by doing some assessments, and we just grabbed you really quickly. What have you observed? I mean, what is the latest here in the Palisades?
Yeah, well, things are moving quickly. When I was here with the superintendent doing site assessments earlier today, just this afternoon, the church behind us was still standing. Pali Elementary, which I'm right adjacent to now, is mostly gone. But in addition to, the announcement that the district made that schools are closed tomorrow, there have been so many rumors going out, and for my constituents, mostly in the Palisades, with Pali Elementary, with Marquez Elementary, and with Pali High, I wanted to be on the ground to make sure I was giving them up-to-date information. And, we are pleased to report that Pali High is about 75–80% intact. Those students are not in school this week. They don't go back until next week because of winter break, and obviously we'll have site assessments and structural engineers, but for the most part, unlike what people were hearing last night, which is that Pali High may be gone, Pali High is mostly there. Pali Elementary is mostly gone. Marquez Elementary is mostly gone. Canyon Charter Elementary, which I was just at, is mostly there. So I'm just trying to update constituents. There's already so many heartbreaking stories of families and constituents who have lost their homes. Schools are closed tomorrow, to give them some peace of mind, one way or the other. Obviously, this is not the peace of mind I had hoped to say, which is that an elementary school has burned, but better to dispel rumors and make sure that they have accurate information. And we're here also just making sure that folks in the community are evacuated, thanking our first responders, and not only thinking about schools tomorrow and then Friday, but also thinking about a school like Palisades Elementary, contingency plans for students in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us to dispel some of those rumors, because this information, it's hard to get out, with so much going on and, crews in all these different places. It's hard to tell what has burned and what hasn't. You and I were talking before, it's a high bar to make a decision to close LAUSD schools that affects so many thousands of families. Talk about that. I mean, what went into that decision that was made?
Yeah, so it's an incredibly high bar for me, and not only because students have missed too many days of schools in the last few years, but mostly just because we have a population in LA Unified where many families rely on us for childcare and for meals. But at the time we decided we wanted to make the school closure decision at a time where families had time to plan. And so around 4 o'clock when we were making that decision, we had 6 fires burning, including the Sunset Hollywood fire, which had just started up in the Hollywood Hills near Runyon Canyon. We had air quality. Even the Palisades is obviously incredibly hardly hit, and we have a few schools that, as we just discussed, are damaged beyond repair. But we also have hundreds of schools in the East Valley, on the east side, near the Altadena and Pasadena fires, where the air quality was really bad. And so we decided, at least for tomorrow, for Thursday, to make a closure decision, just to keep everyone safe, keep them off the roads, also for emergency vehicles and first responders to get to schools. And then we're reassessing on Friday. But today we only had a few schools closed in the Palisades, and then we had a few hundred closed on the east. It's on air quality, but we know that these are close calls. My bar is very high. I want kids in schools. I want families to have a place to go, but we also want people to be safe. And one thing, and folks should go to laschools.net for more information. But throughout LA Unified tomorrow, we have schools that will be open for food distribution. So for families who are in need of food or maybe emergency supplies, Red Cross shelters, they can go to our website laschools.net, and we have schools open in every region that are providing food for families who rely on the school district for basic needs.
Which is so important for so many families who are a part of LAUSD. Last one, I want to get you out of the smoke. I know you don't have any goggles on, which is so helpful. What is it like when you're walking around these schools and you're seeing this destruction? These are places where children learn. These are places that are kind of pillars of our community. What is that like for you personally to tour the damaged area?
It's been devastating. I grew up just next door in Brentwood. I played soccer in the Palisades. This is my community. I was driving around with my district director, whose kids went to Pali Elementary, whose kids went to Pali High, and she lost her home. But the thing that's been inspiring, and I know we've been hearing about it, particularly in the Palisades, but throughout LA, is how people are rallying together to support their community, checking in on one another, making sure kids are okay, making sure there's continuity of learning. And, schools like Pali Elementary, our public schools are civic cathedrals, but what makes them special is what happens inside those schools and the relationships between kids and their teachers and families. So it's heartbreaking. I'm a kid of the Palisades. I went to Mort's Deli and Jacobo's and played soccer at Pali High, so we're heartbreaking, but seeing the resilience and how our students and our teachers are saying we will rebuild and we will be there together for folks who need places to shelter or places to eat or places to go to school is really inspiring, and I'm just grateful and I'm proud to represent this resilient and amazing community of the Palisades.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Please get out of the smoke, get some goggles on. It's so intense.
Stay safe as well, and I hope all our watchers are staying safe and also following those evacuation orders and making sure up-to-date information. We'll be making an announcement by 4 o'clock tomorrow for schools on Friday, so please stay tuned.
All right, perfect.
Thanks.
Nick, thank you so much. Stay safe. We really appreciate you. Oh, you just heard it. That was such a chance encounter. We've been standing across from this elementary school for the last several hours. The physical outside of it, the facade is still intact. We didn't even know that that had been destroyed, that is a loss inside Pali Elementary that we are standing right in front of, because the walls are still standing on the outside. That's part of the issue with having no electricity, no lights, no cell service in this area. You really can only see what you're able to physically light up in front of you and what you're able to see from the glows of fires like this behind us. So, we're able to see the outside of that building, but we're not able to see the destruction anywhere around it. We obviously got here in the dark, so I'm sure you're able to see it when you're standing here. We've been watching this church burn bit by bit. This is the Community United Methodist Church, the Pacific Palisades. When we got here, there was an actual structure here in the front gone. We've watched the beams collapse. We heard a wall collapse. Just utterly devastating, and these winds continue to just fly down south. They're all going south. It's all moving south now. Very strong. They've been moving those embers. For a little while, we had a big firefighter presence just south of where we're standing. I assume that was to kind of leapfrog and to get ahead of where these embers are flying. They've now moved on to something else, and this is obviously dying down. There's really not a lot left here to burn. This is just a total loss. Completely gutted this church. Just scenes of utter devastation. And also for these kids that are affected, with LAUSD schools, that is thousands and thousands of families that will not be going to school tomorrow, that will, not have that child care tomorrow. That's a very big announcement, and they really don't take that lightly. So that's, please stay up to date. Keep up with us here at Fox 11. We'll bring you the latest when they make that announcement tomorrow at 4 o'clock about the next day of school. But no school tomorrow for LAUSD. Marlon, Alex.
Yeah, good to see Nick Melvoin, who called into our coverage last night at 1 in the morning, and out there tonight at Chelsea. We've all been putting in long days. Thank you. The State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, is urging Californians to come together in support of fire-impacted students, families, educators, and school staff. Tax-deductible contributions can now be made through the supplybank.org disaster relief fund to help provide much-needed assistance. Latest figures show that 335 schools, more than 211,000 students are impacted. For more information, we have a link on our website, foxla.com.
And we are just starting to hear about the number of celebrities who have lost their multi-million-dollar homes in the Palisades Fire. We can tell you that Paris Hilton's Malibu mansion burned to the ground, and so did the homes of actors Billy Crystal, Eugene Levy, John Goodman, Cameron Matheson, Ricky Lake, Anna Faris, and Adam Brody. Many others that we don't even know about yet, most likely as well.
Now to this. Now, due to those extreme wind and fire conditions in and around L.A., tonight's performance of Wicked at the Pantages was canceled. Affected patrons with tickets will receive an automatic refund to the payment method on file.
The beloved Malibu landmark is gone. This one here, Moon Shadows, the iconic oceanfront restaurant opened since 1966, was destroyed in the Palisades Fire.
Yeah, it was known for its dining room, which was perched over the water. The restaurant had been a favorite for decades. Representatives couldn't be reached. They did post on social media confirming that their restaurant is lost. Such a great spot for drinks, and so sad to see her that Moon Shadows is now gone.
So all these homes along this stretch just south of Dukes are gone. Firefighters continue to work here on PCH. Iconic restaurant Moon Shadow is gone. The Rosenthal Winery burned down. Topanga Motel has been burned down.
Jeremy Lee Quinn, who posted this viral video. Employees, patrons sharing memories of that iconic spot, calling it a second home, a place for celebrations. One person said they visited weekly for years. Another recently rang in the new year there. Many are struggling to believe the loss of this cherished gathering place. Moon Shadows was more than a restaurant. It was really a part of Malibu's identity.
All right, we do have Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf. He has arrived on the scene in Studio City where we saw the loss of 2 homes. Matthew, what can you tell us?
Well, Marla, firefighters have really been attacking this thing. We've seen firefighters on the ground. I counted probably at least 20 fire trucks just hiking up here. The terrain is pretty intense, but you can see the firefighters still here, putting water on it really from all angles. Several hoses being sprayed on top of this house and the remaining homes next to it. We also just saw a helicopter come and make a drop, but really an intense scene out here. You can see probably up in the hills these bright flashlights. Firefighters are kind of looking out, looking for any hot spots. You can also see some hot spots, and that's kind of why we likely saw that drop. But really, I mean, after everything that we've seen the last few days, you can imagine how everyone's feeling. This is a very steep terrain with lots of vegetation, and with all these fires that we've been seeing recently, you know, people are very, very worried about any time they see any flames like this. So an intense situation. We understand that a couple of structures are lost, but firefighters still out here and attacking it from all angles and really making sure that this thing doesn't keep spreading. understand we heard from a homeowner here that lost everything and very emotional, and just couldn't imagine kind of what they're going through, just what all these other people have been going through. This is just the third fire that I've been to today, hopping around different parts of the area, and just this is what we've been going through the last couple days, and it's pretty intense. Go ahead and send it back to you.
Matthew, my question to you is about that and your travels. You just came from over the hill, the Sunset Fire in Hollywood Hills. Talk to us about the gridlock. I imagine that it was difficult to get around.
Yeah, maneuvering from Hollywood to here was a mess. A lot of roads closed, police blocking roads. You can't go this way, you have to go that way. And then you finally think you're figuring it out, and then there's another road closed. And then once we got over here in the Studio City, Ventura Boulevard was all backed up. And then once you really got into this neighborhood, there was a hike to get over here because it's gridlock. People are kind of leaving, but also there's fire trucks blocking it, and we can't park, so you have to walk.
Yeah, not easy to get around, and part of the reason that they're really urging people to stay off the roads if they don't have to tonight. What
about cause? Did you hear anything about a cause?
We're not aware of a cause yet. We tried speaking with a resident nearby, and they didn't want to talk, but we don't know a cause yet. It doesn't seem like it would be related to the one in Hollywood, though. I mean, the way the wind's blowing, that wouldn't really make sense. But yeah, I mean, going back to that, the firefighters, you can just, the flashlights out here looking for any hot spots. They're definitely taking this seriously, and we did see that helicopter make a drop probably about 5 minutes ago. So can expect more of that probably going into tonight, as this thing's still very hot and caused one home to collapse.
Yeah, and that was live on our air, in fact. Okay, well, we're glad that you made it safely. Matthew Seedorf on the ground for us in Studio City. Thank you so much.
From there, we go to Pacific Palisades, now considered the most destructive fire in the history of L.A. City. Fox 11's Ed Laskos live with more. Ed.
And we've actually moved over. We are in Malibu, just across the line, because it seems like the Palisades Fire doing its dirty work now in Malibu, those flying, burning embers. We are just on the north side, the west side, if you will, of Topanga Canyon, Pacific Coast Highway here, 18,000 block, 1, 2, 3. 6, 7 of these beach cottages, garages burning up in flames the last hour. Fire captain from one of the engines, engine 45, telling me from LA County, the firefighters have moved in here because we're across the line in Malibu, saying about an hour and a half ago they had a fire on the other side of Topanga, setting up, as we've been seeing, certainly last night, a sea of those burning embers, and it lit this section on fire, and they've been dealing with it. And you can see some of those embers burning off, flying off the top of that roof there, as they still have some active flames inside. The embers picking up, but fortunately they're flying to the left of your screen, which means they're flying to the south. They're flying over the ocean, sand, the beaches on the other side of these homes and cottages. But look at the firefighter down at the bottom of that white structure, that two-story structure. That's something we did not see all of yesterday in all of my travels through the Palisades. A charged line, firefighters with water hitting the hot spots, attacking the fire, and that was a big contention in that disaster in the Palisades, and all the devastation up there in the Palisades village. Earlier, we've had the mayor making her first comments about this devastating fire, and even the top of LA DWP, and they had some explaining to do, as they say, about why the firefighters had no water in that massive firefight 24 hours ago. Listen.
We're still continuing working very closely with Metropolitan Water Department to try to make connections into their system and bring water pressure up so that we can fill the tanks. But in order for me to fill the tanks, I had to ask the fire department to stop fighting the fire. And that's a very tough operational decision to make.
This is a time for vigilance and action, not speculation. This is a time for Angelenos to come together, united, to protect themselves and their families, and also each other.
Now live, Pacific Coast Highway and the firefight here. They're getting an upper hand on all of these cottages burning, but they still have a lot of active flames. But back to the point of what you were just listening to, I saw that last night. It really was a battle, not in the air with that firefight, especially through, well, I would say all of the Palisades particularly, but I was thinking about when we were in the heart of the village itself. No airdrops because of the searing wind, so it really was a firefight with high of the engines hooking up to the hydrants, no water, but a difference here 24 hours later, wind conditions, also more utility crews moving in. They'll be coming in from the left of your screen from SoCal here.
Obviously We're starting to lose Ed's signal there. Some news just into us. Governor Newsom, speaking of water, is going to be sending up to 140 2,500-gallon water tenders to Southern California. So that will help in terms of getting more water in place for the firefight all throughout the region.
You know what we haven't seen, although Governor Newsom did deploy them today, is the National Guard.
Right.
We haven't seen that happen. The questions were yesterday, where's the National Guard, especially at the height of the fire last night when things are absolutely out of control. Not that they're completely under control tonight, but it's a better situation. Nonetheless, Newsom saying today that he has deployed the National Guard, yet we haven't seen it.
Haven't seen them yet. Sometimes it takes a little while for them to deploy, so we'll see what exactly they're going to do. I tried to ask that question to the governor this morning when he was with President Biden, and he didn't answer, so hopefully we'll get more clarity from him in the days ahead. In the meantime, let's go to Christy Fajardo. She's been in Altadena, the Eaton Fire, also a dangerous and deadly fire, and really has been devastating to see a lot of the images you've been bringing us all day, Christy.
Yeah, it is truly heartbreaking. And you heard Chelsea talk about Palisades Charter Elementary. I was there yesterday, and we watched as that elementary school sadly burned. And now, I hope this is not a repeat, but we are standing right across from Charles Eliot Magnet Art School, and it is on fire. It is very dark. All the power is out, so it is hard to make out the outline of the building. But that glow of flames right there is right at the base of the tower. This is a very beautiful building during the daylight. It is magnificent. But what is so concerning is if we pan to the left, you can peek into the building. You can see the inside is burning. And when we first got here, there were firefighters trying to knock this down, but they have since packed up and left. And so now we're just seeing it sort of burning at a slow rate, but there's no one here to stop those flames. And what is also worrying is seeing that there is a very large column of black smoke coming from where you're seeing the flames that look like they're at the base of the school or the base of the building. And so this is heartbreaking to watch, and sadly we are seeing this playing out all over Altadena tonight, even despite the fact the conditions have improved considerably. Right now where we're standing, we're not feeling any wind, and it is also very cold, so these cooler temperatures are better for the firefight. Still, embers that perhaps were missed, that flew earlier and perhaps were missed, got under eaves, started smoldering, and this is what happens. So again, this is Charles Eliot Magnet Art School, and right now it is burning. And now that you see, looks like it's a sheriff's department going by, and they put a spotlight on there, so you got a better glimpse at the building. So those of you who are familiar with this, it's actually at the corner of Lake and Calaveras. We were here earlier today watching the Aldi, which is directly across the street, burning. The exterior of the building is still standing, but we were here and we heard the loud booms as the roof was collapsing and the windows were as well. So very sad situation that we're witnessing here tonight. Let's send it back to you.
You know what, Christy, thank you. Just for your information, we have some new information about evacuation shelter for the Eaton Fire, and that is at the Pomona Fairplex in Pomona. So a little bit, and they are, by the way, accepting large animals. If you run into anybody who needs a place to go, that has been added to the evacuation shelter list, the Pomona Fairplex.
And we'll certainly pass that along.
Okay, great. Christy, thank you so much. Onto this. This was posted to Truth Social not long ago. President-elect Trump slams our governor, California Governor Gavin Newsom, blaming him for the wildfires. He says this is Governor Gavin Newsom refused to sign the water restoration declaration put before him that would have allowed millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snow melt from the north to flow daily into many parts of California, including the areas that are currently burning in a virtually apocalyptic way. He wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt by giving it less water. It didn't work, but didn't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid. I will demand that this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California. He is the blame for this. On top of all of it, no water for fire hydrants. not firefighting planes. Should be no firefighting planes, a true disaster. He took to social tonight, and he basically is asking for Governor Newsom to resign as well.
And Governor Newsom pushing back on most of that, but also saying he doesn't really want to get into all of it while all this firefighting is happening, although both of them going back and forth. All right, I was there this morning for this. This is President Biden with Governor Newsom, Senator Padilla, meeting with all the local firefighters. They were briefed briefly at a fire station in Santa Monica after the president observed the birth of his great-grandchild, which was the real reason that he was in town, and spent a few minutes here. Didn't answer any questions, but he did listen to Fire Chief Kristen Crowley. Here's some of what she had to say.
I've never seen the winds in my 25-year career, so we leaned forward as much as possible and pre-deployed. With that, we had a significant amount of fire that occurred. We had an aggressive fire attack. The fire has grown from originally 10 acres to 10,802 acres as we speak. It's an active firefight with our firefighters, and they're doing their very best to protect our people within this area.
Would love to play you sound of President Biden talking, but they decided not to put a mic on him, so you can't really hear him. He didn't answer any questions from the media, neither did Governor Newsom. So a photo op more than a press conference today in Santa Monica.
You just heard the chief there reciting some of those numbers. Of course, they've since grown from that. That was this morning. Now it's close to 16,000 acres for the Palisades Fire. Fox 11's Susan here as soon as she's out there covering that for us, and she joins us now live. Susan?
Yeah, Marla and Alex, yeah, we are back in the Carbon Beach area of Malibu, and you see this house here with the octopus on it. We were here when it seemed as if they pretty much had the fire under control, and then as we came back here, we realized that either this house or the house next to it was really going. There were a lot of big flames that were coming up, and of course the firefighters are continuing to douse that area to make sure that it doesn't continue to burn, but there really is only so much that firefighters can do with the water. What's remarkable about this area is you do have buildings that are still standing, but clearly still they would be considered destroyed. And right next to this house with the octopus is a crumpled house. So I was talking to a woman who walked down here on PCH. She doesn't want to be on television. She told me that her house was saved because her husband decided to stay and try to put out the spot fires, like the back fence caught fire. But ultimately he did have to go because it got so treacherous. And it turns out that their house survived, but the house next to hers, and on both sides, they lost those houses. So their neighbors' houses did not survive. Somehow their house survived. She mentioned that she had been watching this activity on this particular stretch of Carbon Beach since this morning, and that she found it remarkable that they are still here and they're still doing exactly what you see, which is dousing the building, dousing anything that looks like might be too hot, might have an ember, and they continue to do that even though now it's been many, many hours. There is a lot of activity on this stretch of PCH, as we mentioned to you before. This is the northern end of the Palisades Fire. We don't see a lot of damage going farther north, closer to Malibu Town Center or the Civic Center. There's not as much, certainly not active like it is here. Now, what's remarkable about this stretch is you see this kind of situation where they didn't burn to the ground. So it wasn't so hot that everything is just absolutely gone. And if we can show that video that I had put into the system earlier today, it was during the sunset. It was absolutely beautiful, except for the fact that that everything was burned so hot overnight that there's just nothing. There's just, it's just like you can barely see beams, you can barely see anything was left at all. And it's just, it's not that it's flat, but these were all tall. A lot of them were tall, like 4-story type skinny buildings. So anyway, so this is again an active part of where we are. The Carbon Beach area and Carbon Canyon area was evacuated only maybe a couple hours ago. But regardless, it didn't seem as if there were a lot of people that were moving. And we don't see a lot of people out here. I've seen a couple of security people that they're standing by to keep an eye on people's businesses. So I'm going to send it back to you, but, you know, clearly these things are kind of dynamic, right? Where, you know, you think that the firefighters have it under control, and then all of a sudden the flame just rears back up again, and then they've got to do what they're doing right now, which is doused with a lot of water. Alex and Marla?
I mean, the contrast, Susan, between that beautiful ocean and that terrible destruction was quite something to see. That very dramatic video.
It was heartbreaking to me because I'd been to that location many times. And so this is it. Yeah, it was just unbelievable to me because I think I've covered a lot of fires where you wind up with this kind of thing. I mean, obviously, it's destroyed this house, but there's part of it that's still standing. And I was just flabbergasted at this swath of Malibu Beach, of Malibu, that there's nothing left anywhere. There's no building. It's just all this crumpled debris. That's like where moon shadows should have been. It's the same thing, where you could not recognize where it once was.
Yeah.
So it's for people who know what it looks like, supposed to look like on PCH.
I had a very similar experience looking at your video, Susan. I had a friend that had a house right there who messaged me and saw from your video confirmation that their spot is no longer there. And I remember hanging out at that spot, and it was one of my favorite places, and so beautiful, and that community is so tight-knit, and it's just heartbreaking to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our apologies to your friend and to my friend, and we will continue on with our coverage and give you a moment to catch your breath. But, Susan, thank you for that reporting.
It really is such an emotional time for so many. Let's talk about some of the evacuation centers as it relates to the Palisades Fire. You can go to the Westwood Recreation Center. This is on the 1300 block of South Sepulveda Boulevard. That's right between Wilshire and Ohio. Another evacuation center is open at the Dream Center in Los Angeles. That's in Hollywood. And there are 2 evacuation centers for livestock and larger animals. You can go to Pierce College in Woodland Hills, or the Los Angeles Equestrian Center in Burbank. That's on Riverside Drive. Smaller pets like cats and dogs can be taken to the LA County Animal Shelter in Agora.
Yeah, and in response to the ongoing LA wildfires, local Planet Fitness locations are offering anybody impacted, first responders and residents, free access. If you need a place to shower, if you need a place to recharge, relax, you don't need to be a member. Take advantage. Includes, you got locker rooms there, showers, massage, loungers, Wi-Fi, device charging, all that happening at LA County Fitness locations. So thank them for donating that to the community.
NFL is also keeping an eye on the fires, with the Rams set to host Minnesota Monday night, the Vikings, in the first round of the playoffs. The league says should an alternate site become necessary, it would be moved. The game would be moved for Monday Night Football to State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. At this point, no determination has been made, and the game remains scheduled for Monday at SoFi. Rams beat the Vikings by 10 points in their only regular season matchup back in October.
And no indication that SoFi Stadium is under threat right now. The good news there.
It could be because of just folks trying to get there and players impacted.
Right. The Chargers are stepping up to help those affected. The organization donated $200,000 to support the community. The money will go to several programs designed to assist evacuees, first responders, animal rescue, and cleanup crews. The Chargers are also urging fans to donate bottled water, blankets, clothes to evacuation centers. The Chargers are on the road this weekend in Houston, so that should not be impacted.
LA County's new district attorney says looters won't get away with it. Nathan Hochman shared a video of his sister's former home destroyed by the Palisades Fire.
So I'm here in Pacific Palisades at the site of what used to be my sister's home. She's lived here for a while, a long time, with her family, and now this home, along with the homes in this street and this neighborhood, are just gone. I've been here for over 60 years. I've not seen devastation like this in my lifetime. I mean, you have to harken back to the 1990s when we were hit with the floods and the fires and the earthquakes and the riots to even get close to this.
Hochman also promised to crack down on those exploiting the crisis. We spoke to him earlier tonight in our coverage.
So the reports of looting have been coming across both law enforcement and the DA's office. I want to send an unmistakably clear message to looters or anybody who thinks that they can prey on people who have endured these tragedies. We are going to arrest you, we are going to prosecute you, and we are going to punish you to the full extent of the law. So again, it's the tragedies that are going on right now are occupying our first responders. The firefighters have done a magnificent job in responding. Law enforcement has basically called in everybody. Detectives have been putting on uniforms. They've called in help from outside this county, and they are responding in force. But again, there will always be people who look at this as an opportunity to cheat others, to steal from others, to scam others. And I want them to understand that we will not be taking this lightly. And we will go after you. We will make sure that you understand that this will not be tolerated.
Nathan Hochman, District Attorney for Los Angeles County. Let's talk about our weather now. Adam Kruger, we saw a big change today. What do we expect for tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to see a little fluctuation in the winds here coming up. We're seeing them go down tonight. They will go back up tomorrow. I want to start here, though, yes, with graphics 1, because this is going to show you, we have a lot of weather instruments across Southern California. These are various weather stations, and everything you're looking at right here is the current wind gust speed. And so you see a lot of single-digit numbers in areas. That's good. Light winds. However, up into the mountains like the Santa Monica Mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains, we still see pockets where wind gusts are over 20, over 30, even over 40. That would be the yellow and orange numbers. And even in parts of Orange County, we see some gusty winds in the higher elevations as well. But overall, I mean, a lot of these numbers are less than half of what we saw at this time last night. And I want to switch Haley in control room. Yeah, here we go to the peak gust. So this is now like a recap of the highest gust at these spots within the last 24 hours. And notice that we had, especially north of LA, we had 70s, we had 80s. I see a couple 90-mile-per-hour gusts on the map, and even out towards the mountains like north of the Inland Empire, San Gabriel, San Bernardino Mountains, down to the Orange County area, Santa Ana Mountains down in Orange County. Extreme wind gusts. So that's a recap. What we have now is better. So now let's come back to weather 1, and I'm going to share with you the forecast. We got a lot to walk through here. We're going to talk about forecast winds. We're going to talk about forecast humidity. We have an update now on the wind alerts across our area, so we'll cover all that here within the next several minutes. But let's start right here, because the red flag warnings, those continue through Friday, but it's a different type of red flag warning. Notice I've got regular in quotes, because coming into this, we had a PDS, particularly dangerous situation, red flag warning. These are rare, although it happened to be the third one issued this year. Before this, this season, I should say. Before this season, 2020 was the last time we had one of these extreme red flag warnings. So now it's down from that. That's canceled to a regular red flag warning. That goes through Friday. The winds, again, will relax as we go overnight. And the next wind peak starts up midday tomorrow and lasts at least into Friday morning, maybe even a little bit later into the day on Friday. Here's something new now. So the National Weather Service has made some changes to the wind alerts. We had these high wind warnings going for a while. We knew those would expire tonight. So now everywhere you see a color, doesn't matter what color it is, all these colored in areas, whether it's yellow or tan, is under a wind advisory right now. For the areas that are in tan, that wind advisory goes until 2 p.m. on Friday. And just in general, we're looking at winds from the same direction, from the north-northeast. That's what NNE stands for. Sustained around 20 to 30 with gusts at times up to 50. But then we get into these yellowish colored areas. That's a high wind watch, which is issued ahead of what will likely eventually turn into a high wind warning. So we do expect the winds to get back into the higher category, not wind advisory, but high wind warning likely for these sort of mustard yellow colors right here. That will go into effect Thursday night and last into Friday morning. That's where winds sustained could be 30 to 40 with gusts up to 65. So even that is not as extreme as what we saw last night and this morning, but it is going back up to a concerning level. Now, again, red flag warnings in effect for all areas in this magenta right here through Friday. The only exclusion would be kind of along the coast there in LA County down through Orange County as well. And that's because the humidity will start to recover a little bit and the winds will be a little bit lighter in those spots. Forecast wind gusts now. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, all right, what are the winds going to do direction and speed-wise over the next couple of days? So we're going to start you off at 11 o'clock tonight, and it's while you see the streamlines kind of swirling a little, the same overall wind direction is going to be the case, where it's out of the north-northeast, which means blowing towards the coast, essentially, blowing to the south-southwest. But the numbers looking lower tonight. There will be some gusty spots for sure across the mountains in purple right here, but much of the area seeing the winds come down through the middle of the night tonight, which should be great in terms of, well, just, you know, fanning the fires for, first of all. There'll be less of that going on, but also in terms of the efforts from the crews that are trying to knock down these fires and contain them. The wind forecast tonight is looking good. Now, here's where we get into another round of concerning level winds. This is midday tomorrow. I've got it paused at 1 p.m. These purple areas indicate where winds could be gusting 35 miles per hour or higher. And as you see, there are some numbers here that reflect higher than that. 50, 60 miles per hour cannot be ruled out for gusts at times. So that's midday tomorrow. Here we go a little later into Thursday evening now. And while it's not widespread strong winds everywhere, there are still pockets where it's quite windy. And again, this is when that high wind watch goes into effect. There's going to be some really windy areas into Friday morning. Then we go into Friday afternoon, and this is essentially here by the end of the day Friday, the end to our multi-day Santa Ana wind event. And by the weekend, it's not like it's a strong onshore wind coming back, but there's going to be like variable winds, lighter winds. There will be some recovery of the humidity, especially closer to the coast. So now let's transition to looking at humidity. We're starting tonight. We know it's very dry in many areas. We're starting to see that change a little bit in a few parts of LA. Going into tomorrow afternoon now, again, notice Long Beach, 65% humidity. That's pretty good. Torrance showing about 29%. But you get into these whitish gray colors here. That's below 30%, below 20%, some single-digit relative humidities. That is like desert-like dryness. And so that's still going to be a problem. And also into Friday, this is another part of the reason why the red flag warning goes through the end of the day Friday is a lot of the area still will be dry. Notice there is that recovery, though, for a little while near the coast where it does get more humid. So that's why these areas are trimmed away from the red flag warning. And I'll take you even one day farther. I know I'm throwing a lot at you here, but as we go into Saturday, notice we're starting to see the humidity come up more into a little further inland. And so this is not, again, not a big onshore wind. We don't see humidity going up everywhere, but it's starting to change a little bit in our favor. So late day Friday into the weekend, things overall looking much better for us. The air quality, by the way, and this should be no surprise that near some of these fires, especially near the Eaton Fire, we've got a couple air quality sensors right now measuring unhealthy air, and these were showing even worse levels a little bit earlier in the day today. There's obviously going to be some sensors that aren't quite picking up on, for example, the Palisades Fire smoke. We know the air quality is worse near some of these fires right now, but a couple in particular, like around Pasadena, for example, and East LA, showing that unhealthy air from the Eaton Fire that's close to Pasadena right now. Okay, now let's look at our weather pattern. And I'm going to show you this to talk about why we're seeing the offshore winds now, but also why we have another concerning thing to keep an eye on for next week. So we have the high and the low. You've known about this. We've talked about it since last week, and the setup is there for these winds to just continue to go pretty quickly, swiftly through our area offshore. Now, as we go into Friday morning, we still have this offshore component to the winds if you follow the streamlines here, but look what happens at the end of the day Friday. Winds changing direction a little bit as that low goes away, and then it's slightly an onshore wind, and this is, again, when the red flag warnings end. We go through the weekend, no big problems. We go into next week, and this low shows up. And the position of this is crucial because if it's situated on top of us, we don't have to worry too much about Santa Ana winds. If it's situated to our east, to our south, then we get a stronger Santa Ana wind picking up. And I know I'm going long here, but I'm just going to zip this forecast ahead into what's possible around Monday night to Tuesday of next week. Some stronger Santa Ana winds may be on the way. We'll get a better idea in the next few days of what this event looks like. But in the meantime, the short-term wind story is the winds are dying down tonight. They start to pick back up midday tomorrow, and they're quite strong, it looks like, at least into Friday morning. Guys, we'll head back to you.
We can't catch a break. Okay, yeah. Adam, thanks so much. DoorDash has been impacted. It has activated its severe weather protocol to pause operations in impacted areas. Operations include the impacted areas of Los Angeles and surrounding the Pacific Palisades, including Santa Monica, Westwood, Brentwood, Calabasas, Pasadena, and other surrounding areas. And as conditions get worse, DoorDash suspends service in San Fernando, Santa Clarita, and Northridge, and will continue to adjust operations as necessary.
Gina Silva joins us live right now. She has moved to Studio City, where we saw a house, multiple homes catch on fire. Gina.
That's right. We're in Studio City, and right behind me is the 4-story house that caught on fire. And to give us more details as to what happened here is Assistant Chief Altadena with the LA City Fire Department, who's been with the department for 27 years. A long time, sir. Describe what happened.
So at approximately 9:45 this evening, the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to the 4100 block of Veneta. First companies on scene found a 4-story ascending hillside home fully involved, exposing one structure to one side and ember casting into the neighborhood above into the canyon behind the structure.
So the structure behind, how much damage are we talking?
At this time, it appears to be a total loss. It's unsafe for us to go inside, so we're doing final extinguishment from the outside.
Now, even though it has been deemed a knockdown, I saw a lot of firefighters still working this house. Describe what happens.
So just due to the construction features and the way the house kind of pancaked in on itself, there's lots of areas of the home that we're unable to get direct access to get final extinguishment. So we're going to be here throughout the night with a reduced profile so we don't impact the community, but our goal is to eventually get a complete knockdown without letting it pick up enough steam where it starts ember casting into the canyon, because we still have the fire weather, which gives it a double hazard of not only the structure, but it getting into the brush as well.
Now, I understand some of the residents were told to evacuate for their safety just in case it spread. Are they going to be allowed to come back in?
Yeah, so typically we would just exclude residents from the street so we have access to the street. Because of the extreme weather that we're having right now, we did have a warning area. That's going to be lifted in this particular area because of this incident. So as soon as we're able to get our heavy apparatus out of this neighborhood, we'll start opening it up to the residents so they can start coming back, rehousing.
Well, that was really quick work by LA City firefighters. Wonderful job. I have to tell you, I mean, you guys have been dealing with so much in the last 2 days here. Describe some of the challenges you've had, especially with Palisades.
So, as you know, in Los Angeles, we typically, we pretty much have an extended season for brush fires. This particular wind event that we had was very extreme, and you couple it with some of the extremely dry fuels that we have in the Southland, and it was just a recipe for a disaster. So the last few days, as you've seen with the Palisade and many of the other fires that we've had going on, have been exceptionally challenging for the fire service. Luckily, we've had our local partner agencies here to help us, and we're making progress, but we still got a lot of work ahead of us.
You have obviously dealt with fire behavior your entire career. Have you seen anything like this before?
So we're always susceptible to some pretty extreme behavior, but some of the fire behavior that we saw during this weather event was particularly extreme. So no, this was fairly unique. You're only going to see weather this extreme a few times in your career, probably.
Now, I spoke with some LA City firefighters who say that resources are thin. There were some budget cuts, and that may have played something in the response time. Could you shed light on that?
Well, what I can tell you is just with the added call load that we have, our resources are definitely stretched thin right now. We have a ton of calls right now, so our resources are responding to every call that we get dispatched to, and we're going to continue to do so.
Well, in Altadena, which is Pasadena Fire, it's a different agency, there were 5 people who lost their lives, and mainly because there were evacuation orders and some people don't want to leave. Can you speak to our viewers in terms of how important it is to follow those orders?
Yeah, absolutely. The warnings, the evacuation orders that we put out, they're there for a reason, right? These fires are extremely dangerous. They move exceptionally fast, and they pose a significant danger not only to the residents but to the firefighters. The less that we have to deal with, the more we can focus on protecting homes and property. But obviously, life safety is going to be our priority. priority. And if that's what we have to focus on, you know, we have to make tough decisions when we have these wind events.
We came from the Hollywood Hills. That was also really fast progress. Great work by LA City Fire. Now here in Studio City, you guys got that out. Palisades, it's still a problem. Can you give us an insight as to how much more you guys have? What's the containment?
You know, off the top of my head, we have at least, I believe, 3 non-completely extinguished brush fires at this moment. I can't really speak to any of the numbers right now, but we do have resources at all of them right now, and we're making steady progress.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you guys are very busy. Marla, Alex, I'm going to let him go unless you have a quick question for him.
I just quickly want to know, was anyone hurt in that total loss?
Were there any injuries in the total loss?
At this incident, yes. There's been no reported firefighter injuries, and we made contact with the resident of the affected address, and that person told us that everybody was out and accounted for. So as far as we know, no injuries, civilian or sworn.
Great.
Thank you so much for all you do, all your hard work. It's very much appreciated by us and, of course, all of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gina.
I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.